Hello, today is Wednesday, October 15th, 2025. And again, I'm going to be reading from the UCC Daily Devotional, United Church of Christ Daily Devotional, utilizing a Christian text and a devotional, and discussing how it impacted me, the thoughts it generated in me, not particularly from a Christian perspective, but just in a life perspective, something that can be done with any, I think, of the sacred writings of any faith tradition, and should be done. Regardless of, I think, it can be done regardless of your beliefs or non-beliefs or whatever. There's many things that we can learn from. Anyway, the devotion I'll be reading from today is entitled Cancel Culture, written by Ellis Miller. Ellis bases the devotion upon Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1, New Revised Standard Version. For everything there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. And then Ellis writes, I am single-handedly trying to resurrect cancel culture. No, not celebrity cancel culture. I'm not that powerful. I'm talking about the cancel culture that died in 2020 when we invented the phrase, we can shift online. Before our hybrid world erupted, there were times church meetings could be canceled or would be canceled in winter by snowy weather, and we stayed home in fuzzy pajamas with steaming mugs of peppermint tea. There were times when too many people would call out of a meeting because they were out of town, and instead of hopping on Zoom, we would hop onto the couch for a night of relaxation. We discerned potential agenda items for monthly committee meetings like clockwork, but sometimes we are called to discern whether we need to meet at all. The decision of when to pivot or put down our work becomes a permission-giving mini-Sabbath, a prayer of thanksgiving for found time in a too busy world. It's Spirit's deep breath making itself known and inviting us to slowly exhale. How else do you explain the quiet burst of joy that comes when an email proclaims, tonight's meeting is canceled, see you next month? This isn't to say that online options aren't wonderful. They are. Or that sometimes canceling isn't disappointing. That happens too. It's to remember that when we default to assuming the show must go on, we blur the lines between what is urgent and what can wait, where our presence is needed or where we can honor an absence, when it is time to shift online and when it is time to log off. And Ellis's prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the meetings I cannot cancel and the courage to cancel the meetings I can and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, a few things that went through my mind about this is, from my experience in church, sometimes we meet just to meet, and it's more about community. And the sooner we just admit that, the better off I think everyone's going to be. All the churches will be. And the other thing that struck me is I think in our capitalistic society, production is the key. And so when we aren't being productive, then we feel like we're failing. Well, first there's an issue with how do you define productive anyway? Because sometimes, as Alice alluded to in the devotion, sometimes we find reasons or find things to put on an agenda just to justify the meeting when it doesn't really matter. We don't need to do those things. But I think our world, our capitalistic world, pushes us to be productive and find things to do. I've been thinking a lot about that now that I'm in retirement, and I have so many people saying, "Oh, you're too young to retire," and that sort of thing. And what are you going to do in your retirement? And I think that all comes from people being caught up in that capitalistic productive mode, that somehow you're not a worthy or useful person unless you're producing something. And I think we need to take a step back from that and just be sometimes. And I do think it's important to meet when you need to meet. It's important to streamline meetings. One of the things I did in the churches that I served in and other churches that I worked in is try to implement things called a consent agenda, which basically means things that are really inconsequential, that just need tacit approval. Everyone gets emailed or sent the information before the meeting, and so then you just approve all the different things, like meeting minutes. You don't need to sit there and read them. I mean, I was in one meeting in another church, not of my denomination, in which it was required that they read out loud the minutes from the previous meeting, and then everybody approved them. And to me, that's making work. It doesn't need to happen. People can read this stuff beforehand and approve it, or if there needs to be an adjustment, make an adjustment to it. But approve everything and shift from looking at what we've done to planning for the future. Really, that's what I think a lot of organizations and a lot of churches need to do, is look more towards the future instead of what they accomplished in the past. Focus on that. Anyway, that's another line of thought, but it popped into my head as I was reading this. I think we need to pick and choose and really be discerning about what is important, what we really need to accomplish, and whether it needs a meeting or just an email flurry of responses could fulfill. And sometimes it's just a matter of, it's okay just to take a break, to say the meeting's canceled and just have unexpected free time at the last minute that you don't always have to meet. This devotion also made me think of how, with the advent of smartphones, how work became something that was 24/7, constant, all the time, and the expectation is that everyone's always available. And I think that, again, places the wrong emphasis. It places the emphasis on, quote unquote, being productive rather than being I don't want to say not productive, but having time just to be. And I think that is just as important. And having that off time can actually make you more productive in the time that you're actually working. Because if you're working 24/7 all the time, it's not something that I think is good for anyone and good for society. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Maybe it gives you something to think about. And hope to talk to you again soon.